Shift Up hire has gained some controversies on X after it is revealed that he was once a part of a DEI initiative at Sony. Jerome Benzadon had said on his X account, quote, "After 13 memorable years at PlayStation, I'm thrilled to announce that I'm joining Shift Up as head of global communications. Can't wait to steer the global campaigns for the gems from Mr. Kim Young-tae, Mr. Shinsei Mikami, and their teams." I hope I'm pronouncing those correctly. However, his previous position at Sony has gained a few eyeballs and not in the good way. Pirate Nation says this, quote, "After 13 years at PlayStation, DEI specialist Jerome Benzadon is joining Shift Up as head of global communications. His professional profile lists product and corporate communications as one of his areas of expertise, with a focus on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion." And he lists that as previously as DE&I, as opposed to the DEI without the ampersand in it. However, I say previously because it seems as if he has now scrubbed that particular point from his LinkedIn profile. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first you may have noticed that there are some community notes attached to Pirate Nation's X post. Of course, there always seems to be, fair or not, saying, quote, "Jerome Benzadon was hired by Shift Up as head of global communications, not as a DEI specialist. His profile shows over 20 years of expertise in video game public relations and communications, including roles at PlayStation, Ubisoft, and THQ." Of course, you no doubt see the notes explaining why added context isn't needed, and we're showing that for context only. And Pirate Nation went on to say that Jerome Benzadon was a big fan of Concord. However, Concord was, as I last remember, a PlayStation exclusive that got canned shortly after its debut. But the X account Emerald Apple went on to say this, quote, "I swear all these parasites do is constantly fail upwards. Now this DEI corporate vampire Jerome Benzadon has joined Shift Up. He has edited his About section and deleted his DEI part following the backlash. Now his LinkedIn profile has nothing left from his previous experiences about DEI or ESG. He claims to have always been a huge Shift Up fan, even from the days of Destiny's Child, but I have my doubts. For those who do not know, Destiny's Child was one of Shift Up's first IPs, which is now a defunct gacha game that went EOS in 2023 after 7 years of service. It had character designs that rivaled Nikki Goddess of Victory in sexy outfits, proportions, and yes, even lowly characters. A game with often gratuitous sexualized female characters with unrealistic body types with over-the-top fan service. Not something a typical DEI person would admit to liking, as it is in direct opposition to that ideology. On top of that, he is still a big Stellar Blade and E fan. Again, not something a typical person who is DEI manager would admit to. DEI has always been associated with reduced sexualization, uglified characters, and racial diversity where it doesn't belong. So which is it? Was his DEI ESG experience claim a lie, or is his claim that he was always a big Shift Up fan a lie? My copium take was that he was just having that DEI ESG phrasing in there to survive in the corporate world post-2020, like performative professional virtue signaling. I guess we will know when the next marketing material for Bloodbrain comes out and whether or not it is new dirt. However, some people are not that convinced, including Savvy, who has said, "LOL, no, you Mr. DEI guy will be why this house doesn't give another dollar to Shift Up starting now. This can be remedied by your termination." And she goes on to say, quote, "No, we aren't doing this. DEI current and former is radioactive. I will no longer give Shift Up my money. Easiest choice to make. Zero tolerance on DEI. No more snakes in the industry. No more focusing on all the wrong things. Get this freak out." Another person is saying, "Just know if their major franchises go to pieces after you come on board, you will be blamed and people will be calling for your head because of your track record. And yes, that will be the case even if you aren't actually responsible at all. Figured you deserve a heads up on that." However, it is important to point out that Shift Up has in the past fired at least 2 people for being too feminist ideologues from their company. However, this had yet to be officially confirmed by Shift Up. Okay, so first things first, I understand the concern that many people have had. There have been few that have been trying to rail Chibi Reviews for his concerns about this, and I know a lot of people rag on him a lot for various things. I don't think it's completely fair to rant on him about every single little thing as if he's the worst person that's ever lived, but I understand why some people have reservations about some of the things he's done and said, but at the same time, if someone gets good reporting, then they should be commended for that. And I don't think it's completely fair that he gets all that dogpiling that he usually gets. That being said, I think in this situation, we do have to wait and see. I believe that he has an albatross on his neck because of the past position he had, fair or not. Regardless if you think it's fair that he has it, he does. And I believe that he needs to, at the very least, calm things down. Either him or Shift Up or both have to calm things down, because this is not going to go away. This is something that a lot of gamers have been worried about, because this is akin to the moral panic in 1980 or the 1980s, when you have people like Jerry Falwell and the satanic panic that a lot of people had to metal music and stuff like that, only is on the other side of the aisle. You had the right wing doing this back in the 1980s and early 90s, and now you have the other side of the aisle doing this because of male gaze and stuff like that. And so you have this whole idea that people have to cater to a small section of people that want to have you believe that they speak for the entirety of a particular race or gender or ideology or orientation, when they really do not. They say they do in order to get you to think that they are speaking for you, and then they go and censor everything. And we know what DEI, when it comes to corporate bigwigs, is to shoehorn and to preach every sort of thing, thinking that they know what minorities want, and they get it wrong almost 90 to 100% of the time. And what it usually means is to shoehorn things like that Emerald Apple said, where it doesn't really belong, which is in organic ways. Not that we shouldn't have equal representation. That doesn't have anything to do with what these companies have actually been doing when it comes to DEI. They usually are failing at the execution, not the idea of needing equal representation. When it comes to things like Stellar Blade, Shift Up has been one of the few companies that seem to understand it. And yes, I have played Stellar Blade. It is a fantastic game. There are a few reservations I have with it when it comes to the sudden shift between open world and linear progression, and plus the whole thing where you have to get Eve onto the exact pixel to be able to hit a trigger to go into the next room or something like that, and sometimes she seems a bit floaty in the controls somewhat, but it is a fantastic game. A little Metroidvania in there, a little bit action RPG in there, a little bit of spectral fighting. I want to warn people, if you think this is going to be a spectral fighter, you're going to be very much disappointed, because this is one of those things where you have to think like an MMO, like Final Fantasy XIV and WoW, where if you know the pattern of a particular mob, you will always know how to defeat that particular mob, because you know what to do when you see a particular combo coming up or a particular mechanic coming up. When you think like that, it's going to be a whole lot easier to get through the game. And for the love of everything that is holy, if you go play the game, please do the side quests. Please find all those beta cores and HP cores, because those will help you immensely in the game, especially if you do on higher difficulties. I would recommend you do the canon stuff first before you do the other two endings. Yes, there are 3 endings to the game. And for the record, it took me only 30 minutes to get through the Raven fight. And that should be saying something, because I know there was a certain YouTuber that was saying that they rage quit after they spent over an hour and a half on that fight. And I took a look at their playthrough of the game when they streamed, and it seems as though they try to rush through the game, thinking that's how you play the game, or that's how you should play the game. Take your time with it, do all the side quests. It's very rewarding. There's a secret area that you can get into when you do all that stuff. For the love of all that is holy, do that stuff. It will be really rewarding in the game. And it's not a very difficult game once you learn how to do the mechanics, once you learn how to do all that. And that's why I am so looking forward to this next iteration, this new installment of the Stellar Blade franchise. Even if it seems as though that this person is going to, at the very least, change a few things, that I doubt that's how that's going to go down. Again, I'm a little reserved, and I do get the worry, because gamers are tired of being looked at as some sort of chud, and that word gets thrown around a lot as much as any other word that gets thrown around right now. They're tired of being called sexist and misogynist and stuff like that, and they don't want to see things getting censored. They have enough of that in the 80s and 90s and the aughts. They have enough of that. How many times do we have to keep defending ourselves because of these sort of allegations? First it it was, oh, video games cause violence in real life. Correlation does not equal causation, and now it's making us all sexist? When are we gonna say, hey, wait a minute, these are normal people that don't want to see games getting censored because a few people can't handle it? But that being said, I also think that we are not giving this guy a chance. This guy is clearly trying to say that, hey, there's nothing to worry about, there's nothing to be concerned about. I've been a fan of this company since the days of Destiny Child. I know nothing about that game, by the way. And from what we've heard about how Shift Up handles employment, the final say is going to come down to Mr. Kim. So that being said, I think that maybe Savvy, as much as I love her opinions, she's usually correct on most of the stuff, especially with Collective Shout. I think she's doing a terrific job in exposing those people far more than I've ever been able to. But that being said, I do believe that it is premature right now to know whether or not this is going to be a detriment to the company. If it turns out that it's going to change a lot about Shift Up, then we can get out the pitchforks and torches, proverbial pitchforks and torches. But I do believe we need to get this guy a chance to prove himself. I do think, though, that he needs to at least address some of this stuff, because normally if there's a lot of people that are complaining about or saying something like, hey, what's going on, or please get rid of this guy, no one says anything, and they just let it go. And I believe that that is a detriment to companies that do that. So yeah, I do believe he needs to at least come out, or Shift Up needs to go and say, at the very least, to calm it down a little bit. Even if it falls in deaf ears, at the very least, you make it official, put it on record, say something to make it official that, hey, none of our games are going to change because of this hire. This guy is going to be for this purpose. Put it on record somewhere. That way, if it turns out that you went back on your word, then we can hold you accountable. And that's all we ask, is that you own up to what you've done or haven't done. And to Mr. Benzadon, I would say, yeah, go ahead and say something. Make people be able to trust you. Show that they can trust you, and show that you can be trusted. To not censor anything, to not go back on your word that you're not going to do anything like that, because these people worry, and they have every right to be, and they should not be shamed. And please reassure people that you're not going to be influenced by certain YouTubers right now who are quote-unquote anti-Chud or anti-grifter, because I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few people who are going to try to cheer you on if you try to censor future games, and that includes Stellar Blade Blood Rain, which I am excited about. I do think the hand-to-hand combat is a little bit of a change from the katana-based, sword-based fighting that we've seen in the first game. Again, I'm a little bit reserved, I'm a little bit concerned. I do understand the concern, but let's give this guy a chance to prove to us that he's on the up and up, and Shift Up is going to continue to produce high quality games and learn from the little bit of mistakes that the first game had with the controls and stuff like that, and some of the odd design choices that it had. And yes, I wish I had recorded me going through that Raven fight, because it is not a very difficult fight if you learn to pay attention to mechanics. Whoever rage quitted after an hour and a half of failing miserably at that fight, the words "get good" might have applied there. And I'm not gonna say who it is, but if you have been paying attention lately to certain people who worry about critics who drink, you probably knew who I'm talking about. But those are just my opinions. Please leave yours down below, and like, share, and subscribe. Take care of yourself and each other, and I will see you next time.